Hello, we are live. Hey guys, Lindsay Dollinger here with a live podcast episode of the Social Selling Sisterhood. And I'm super excited to bring you guys our guest today, Mrs. Shannon McGill. And okay, Shannon, we're just going to dive right in. Tell
Okay.
us about you, how you got to what you do right now and what exactly it is that you do right now.
I would be happy to. I'm Shannon McGill. I am founder and managing director of Diane Business Consulting out of Columbus. And what we do in a very tiny nutshell, and I'll get into the rest of it later, but what we do is provide resources for small businesses. Our goal is to keep the entrepreneur in the lane that they're passionate about, and we come behind them and build the team behind them to take all of those things that they don't necessarily like and that's holding them back and taking them from their passion and draining their energy and all that good stuff. So we have accounting, IT, HR, admin, marketing and branding, sales. We have C-suite executives that can come in, but we do it all at a fractional level so people only pay for what they need, and we can all build that strategy together.
I love that. Okay, so how did you pick that path? How did you get here?
So I was one of those business owners that got completely overwhelmed with small business. I owned a fitness company, and we were operating out of a couple of different locations and employees. And I got into it with a passion for, I was a yoga instructor and personal trainer and all this good stuff. And got into it with a passion for that. And then I had no idea. I was in my mid-20s at that point. I had no idea how much went into the business side of things. Like all of this stuff that wasn't generating revenue, that I wasn't good at, that I didn't like, right? All of that kind of stuff. Just put me in front of people. That's all I wanted to do.
Yep.
But it lasted in varying degrees for about 8 years. And it was one of those things that by the time I was done, I was the parent that wasn't making kids soccer games. I was emotionally exhausted at the end of it. And so I stepped away, and I did some marketing for some small businesses, like just a couple. And then I got a job with a nationwide agency, and I worked with small businesses in that nationwide agency. Is what I did. And I saw the same things play out, right? Entrepreneurs come in, they have an idea, they're going to change the world. They've got this passion, they've got this better product or better service than what's on the market. But then they would get to a point they just beleaguered. Everything else that goes in with it. Everyone had cowboy mentality. I'm going to do this myself, right?
Yeah.
They would be exhausted. And so about 5 years ago, I went through just some incredible life changes. It didn't feel incredible at the time, but a major health issue, in and out of the hospital. Got a divorce after 18 years. My father passed away. Like, there were so many things in such a short period of time that happened. And so at that point, then I really kind of had to reevaluate. On a personal side, I realized, okay, I'm just sleepwalking through life. And I really had to work through that and some healing. But on a professional side, an acquaintance at the time kind of asked me to come and look at their business. They were like, look, we're working 80 hours a week. My husband and we can't seem to make it grow, and we're not sure what's going on. And as I started looking, I just realized how many inefficiencies are in small business as we spend all of our time trying to do things we're not skilled at and that kind of thing. And so as I consulted, then I started to realize that I can tell small business owners all I want what to do. They don't have the time nor the resources to coordinate all of it and to make it look like an actual company. And so that's kind of where that came from. So in December of 2018, I got a bartending job to kind of start building my company out. In July of 2019, I officially launched, and we were doing well. We were building that foundation. We were, let's do this. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, an interesting thing happened. Suddenly, all these small business owners who had cracks in the foundation, COVID hit, and they were just these gaping craters, right? So lots of people needed help. So we started jumping in, and we went from a team of 4 to a team of 14 in about 2 to 3 months, right in there.
Oh, wow.
And it was insanity. I will tell you,
yeah.
July and August was nothing but me putting out fires. nothing but being putting out fires. And I actually stepped back at that point because I knew I was doing the same thing to my business that I was trying to save other people from, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, we pulled the marketing that we had been doing, and I spent September through December reevaluating, looking at the foundation. We decided to do things a different way than the way we were doing it, as far as the way we interact with the people that provide our services and that kind of thing. And I brought on a CFO and a COO. I realized my place is with people, right? Jeff's place is with operations. I don't want to do that, but he loves it. And Larry's place is with finances, and I don't want to do that. He does that. So as of January 1st, we have them on board, and things are just going amazing. This is a way for us. Big business thrives because they've got the right people in the right places. Entrepreneurs don't have that luxury, or if they do try to bring in independent contractors, a lot of times they're overwhelmed with trying to coordinate and manage them, right? And so we've kind of put all of that together so we can build the company behind the entrepreneur.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I wrote down so many good lessons that I don't even know if you realized that you were sharing, but I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so good. Okay. So I love how you said all these things that were little cracks in our business, like became gigantic cracks when something like COVID happened. And it doesn't always have to be something like COVID, but those little things that, any little weakness in your business, whether it's not knowing how to do a tech thing, or, I mean, it could literally be anything, but that can really have some big impact when the right things happen. Absolutely. When they line up.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's not even, at times I've even seen in business that it's not even like some cataclysmic thing like COVID. Sometimes we just hate something so bad, or we feel so bad about ourselves because we can't do it or whatever, that we start to procrastinate on it. Then we beat ourselves up because we're procrastinating, and it goes longer. And then we beat ourselves up more, and then we avoid it even more, right? And then it gets to a point where it becomes this big gaping crater in the business. And so it's important for me to help small business owners understand that we are not cowboys. We don't know it all. And it takes people with skills and passion and energy in those areas to put them in the mix so that we don't get to that point. We're sacrificing our businesses when we put ourselves in a point where we expect ourselves to do it all.
100%. And I like how you said put people in their passion. Like it's the same thing with your own business when you're trying to do all the things. I try to stress this with our listeners, but do the things in your business that you have to do, that like you add your flair to and that you're passionate about and you love doing, but it's okay to outsource other things. And I think that people think you have to make a certain amount of money, or you need, to have a certain number of customers or something. So can you talk a little bit about shifting to that mindset of when it's okay to outsource, who can outsource?
Absolutely. So we work with very specific companies. We work with companies who are looking for rapid growth on a solid foundation. I mean, they are really wanting to scale. But any small business owners looking to outsource for anything, right? What's important to understand is that when you are aligned in your passion, that is what brings people to you. It attracts people, the right people, right? It attracts people who are drawn to what you're bringing to the market. Yep. And so when you are in that lane and you are moving forward, your time is worth whatever it is that you're selling. Your time is worth $100, $200, $1,000 an hour, right? Mm-hmm. You are actively driving the bottom line. You are actively bringing in sales. When you get stuck on putting stuff in QuickBooks or posting social media content that just the technicalities drive you crazy, right? Or you are copywriting and you don't like to copyright, or you're designing things and you're not a designer. First of all, the quality is going to show through. That's not your skill set. The quality is going to show through, and it's going to affect your business. Second, it's going to affect the version of your business that people see. The second thing, though, is it not only takes you longer, it saps your energy, it saps your passion. You start getting frustrated with yourself. You're procrastinating, right? It takes you away from your family, all of those kinds of things. And instead of making $500 an hour, you could be paying someone $20 an hour to do that stuff. And not only is it a money exchange, it is a energy exchange. Yes. It is a passion exchange. You get to keep it and they get to keep it because they're getting what they need out of it as well. So people will say, I don't have the money to do it. Okay, start slow. You need to go slow. You need to identify 2 things that you can hand off to someone, 2 hours a week, right? But spend those hours doing the thing that makes you the most money.
Yes.
That's how you start to make the exchange. You identify 2 things that trip you up, but substitute the time that you do for those in your passion and driving that business. So you are bringing in the income. And then it's a cycle at that point. You bring in more income, you start handing something else off. I literally had a client today tell me, or a future client, we're going through the process. She told me today, she's like, I want to do nothing but talk to people. She's a consultant. I want to do nothing but talk to people and create programs. And I'm like, done. So, but we can't in her budget do all of that right now. So we have to do piece by piece.
I like that. Figure out what you can do. And then, start baby steps. Like, as I'm like, you don't have to hire someone for like a full-time employee. No. Like, it's not like that at all. And maybe it's just an individual project at first. You know, I had someone, I made like a planner and tracker system and we made it editable. And I started doing it on Adobe and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so clunky for me. I don't know how to use this. Yes. And I'm like, I had a VA anyway. I was like, could you please do that? Yes. And she's like, oh yeah, no problem. And she got it back to me in like an hour. And I'm like, that would have taken me like 5-10 hours. I don't even know to do. And it wouldn't have looked so beautiful.
Right. And you would have been frustrated and irritated.
Oh, I was.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, think of all this stuff then that I in turn was able to do with that time that I paid her to do. Like I was like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And all right. So it's really just, I always hammer home that point that you have to be intentional about it. And if you are offloading time that you are paying for, you have to fill that time with something that is going to bring in the money, or you're not going to be able to afford to do it.
Right. That's a great point. Yeah. You can't just like pay someone else to do all your business and then you sit at home and like do nothing.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
100%. So I feel like February in Ohio, it can already be kind of dreary. You know, we've been, and a lot of people, or at least I know myself, I tend to work more on my business when it's winter and there's not as much to do outside and, you know, all that. What are some things that you can suggest to avoid burnout? Because you talked a little bit about how you were burning out in your 20s. And I mean, that's a very real thing. So is there anything besides hiring the help?
Sure. Yeah. And, you know, it's interesting. Understanding as women that we are one person who wears a lot of hats, right? Yeah. And so, our business is just part of that our business doesn't define us. Its success or its failure doesn't define us, right? It is a lesson. It's a growth opportunity, moving through that, regardless of what happens. We're also moms. We're also wives. We're girlfriends. We're friends. We're part of the PTA. Like there's so many things that we feel like we have to do. The thing that I have realized, and honestly, this has been a fairly recent revelation, and I'm working to get myself there, is switching the mindset of, okay, my clients need this stuff today, or my team members need this stuff today. Here's my to-do list. And then when am I going to figure out, when am I going to eat healthy? When am I going to work out? When am I going to meditate after that? I switched it to that stuff takes precedence. If that stuff doesn't get done, nothing else may get done, right? that stuff takes precedence. And the reason I've made that switch is because I'm not going to be good in any capacity. None. If I'm mentally unwell, if I'm anxious and tired and exhausted and depressed, or physically unwell, I'm overweight, or I'm eating unhealthy things and I don't have the energy, right? That kind of thing. Spiritually exhausted, where I don't have that thing inside me that drives me anymore, right? If I am not taking care of those things, nothing else matters. And it's such a short race to get to the point where I'm so out of balance and I can't do what I'm trying to do. So I made that shift in my mind, and I actually, starting in March, had blocked off my calendar until 10 a.m. So
Nice.
that's when I do all of that stuff. Now, if I have a doctor's appointment, I'll throw it in there, right? That kind of thing. But I identified in me that if what was happening was I would work a full day, then I wouldn't get my workout in, then I wouldn't get meditating, then I wouldn't sleep well that night. Then the next day I would be just a little bit more exhausted, right? Work a 10, 12, 14-hour day. And what this does is this forces me in parameters to make sure that I'm doing what I need to do for me. And then I only have so much time left to get my to-do stuff done. And if I don't get it done, I have to hand it off. There's no other option, because this stuff needs done. And a lot of times small business owners have a hard time handing things off, not because they can't, but it's because they don't know how to do it. If you put yourself in a position where you're like, oh my gosh, this stuff is not going to get done, I think someone else can probably do this part of it and go from there.
Yes. Well, and too, and I don't know like who said this or whatever, but when you're given a little bit less time, then you have to be a little more efficient also with your work. So you're like, okay, well, I guess I can't, scroll through, or like done is better than perfect. Like we're going,
Absolutely. And that's human nature, right? If we have 3 things to do and we have 8 hours to do it, that 3 things are going to extend over that 3 hours. If we have 3 hours to do something and 3 things to do, it's going to extend over 3 hours, right? It's human nature to kind of fill that time with what we have on our list.
100%. Yeah. I just recently made that same switch where I'm like, because I wasn't getting my workout in, I wasn't getting, and I was eating really unhealthy, and I was catching myself stopping getting fast food because I'm like, okay, I have blah, blah, blah lined up, and there was no me time. And I was like, okay, I got to switch. Like literally like 3 weeks ago made the switch. And it has been.
It must have been something in the air. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it was the burnout. I was getting the burnout, and I'm like, I'm passionate about all of this. Like the only missing piece was planning my day better so that I know I am getting in an hour of workout / meditation / journaling, like that me time, instead of making that the last priority. And the same thing, I feel like I'm showing up so much a better me than I was before.
Agreed. And the interesting thing that I figured out through all of that was, and I think this is what made me realize to make the switch, was I could literally work 14 hours and there still be things to do. Like it never ends. There's always things to do. And then that's when it occurred to me, okay, so I'm going to have to put parameters here somewhere, or I am going to be burnout. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be unhealthy. And then everything around me, all those balls are going to start dropping because I'm not there to keep them going.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so while we're talking about time management and efficiency a little bit, what would be maybe a tip or two for maybe a new business owner or someone who has been struggling and they're like, okay, I'm getting back into it, that you have found has either worked for you, or maybe you tell your clients, just something that we can add into our day?
My advice for time management, money management, skill sets, all of that good stuff is know yourself. I am a free spirit by nature. I no problem whatsoever looking at my watch and being like, you know what? I think I need to drive to Chicago tonight, or maybe I hop on a plane and got like, that's me. I love that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what happens when I fill up my schedule with, like you hear, don't put it on a to-do list, put it on your schedule. So I've done that. I've like filled up my calendar, one thing after another. So I make sure I get it all done. I look at that in the morning. Internally, I freak out and I shut down. It's too much
Okay.
pressure. Like my free spirit hates it. When I have a block of time and I literally just float from thing to thing, something will pop in my head and I go do that. And then something pops in my head and I go do that. I get so much done. Now, to anyone looking on, it would look like I was being very inefficient, right? I'm not blocking time, all of those standard things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. But I get so much done. That's the way I work and that's the way I function. So my encouragement for people is learn, study up on all of the different techniques, learn and then try them. And if it feels heavy to you, if it feels anxiety inducing, if it feels that kind of thing, maybe that one's not for you. Move on to the next thing. We function best when we're in alignment with ourselves. And so it's important that we take that information in, not feel guilty about it if it's not for us, but to kind of internalize it and try it. See what happens. If it doesn't work, move on to the next thing.
That's so interesting. You're really the first person I've ever talked to that runs that way. But no, it's so good for me to hear that because I'm like, I can totally think of some women on my Color Street team right now who completely align with you and like have really been struggling with, like, we do power hours and it's very structured. Well, we have a very structured one and we have a not so structured one, but even the not so structured one, there are a few women who are like, this is not how I work.
Yeah.
And so I'm so glad you just shared that because I'm like, oh my gosh, I am totally sending this to them because they need to hear that it's okay. Like it's nothing.
Yes. And what happens is we end up creating all the shame in our heads because we can't do it right. What's wrong with us that we can't do it right? And those kinds of things, those power hours and that kind of thing, I know which ones that I can be involved in and which ones I can't be because I do. I get all kinds of
Yeah.
This,
it's like
right?
a mental block for sure.
It is because that's the thing. We don't want to feel bad afterwards. So our brain starts shutting things down because it doesn't want us to feel bad. It's trying to protect us. And if it's not in alignment with who we are, we're going to have a really hard time doing it.
Yeah. Okay. So what does this look like? Do you like have an overall to-do list or like a task list and you pick from it? Because I'm like, there's no way you can remember all the things that you do.
So I use a Trello board.
Oh, okay.
We use Trello for project management across the company, but I have just a running list and I put the due dates on them. So it pops up, when that kind of thing. I review it in the morning, just kind of look down through it. And then I give myself 2, 3, 4 hours and I literally just pop from thing to thing to thing. When we start trusting ourselves, right? Yeah. When we start trusting ourselves, we remember a whole lot of stuff. When anxiety kicks in is when it starts to like blur all of those things. If I need to hop back on Trello, I will to look at it. But I'm always shocked at the end of that time that I've given myself, how many things I get in. I'm like, I did that, right? It's just now I might not have done anything all at once. So I don't hop back in and knock off one at a time because then I would get discouraged because I'm halfway through 18 things, right?
Right.
But when I'm done, it's amazing to me how much I have gotten done. And that's how I roll. It just works for me.
I love that. No, that's so good. I am so glad that you said that. Because like I said, I've never heard anyone express that fits better for their personality, but it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's also good for us to remember, especially when we're working with teams or, other people who are, whatever your business is, you're working with someone else at some point in time, that not everyone works the same way you do. And that's a huge part of building your team successfully.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about boundaries. You talked a lot about pivoting as well in your story, even so much recently in the past year. Do you have any if someone feels like they're maybe not so in tune with, okay, I'm ready to pivot and do something, like how do you know when it's time to pivot?
So I think the foundation of anything is health and healing internally as women, right? And then everything else flows out of that. And so, as far as 3 years ago, 5 years ago, that kind of thing, I had so much anxiety, so much shame, so much of that kind of stuff that I would have never trusted myself to make the decisions on the fly that I have to make now, right? Our company has big ambitions. We're going nationwide. Like we have these huge goals for the next 10 years. And so there's no way I could have done what I'm doing right now. So it took some time to heal and to grow in those areas before I got here. Now it is a belief in myself and where I'm headed. It is that belief that, yeah, I am going to hit those. And if I don't hit those goals, I'm going to do everything that I can too. And I trust myself. So when the time comes, in a new business, a business is just over a year old, when fires are going off everywhere, I had a decision to make. Okay, do I muscle through this, or do I back off, take the PR hit, people being like, you're only a year old, but taking the PR hit and thinking, okay, we can do this smarter. And we're not going to be able to support clients, right? And the way we want to support them if we don't make sure our foundation is strong first. And so I chose to do that. I couldn't have done that 3 years ago because the embarrassment of what people would have thought, or right, that kind of thing would have been too much. So I think when you're talking about deciding when it's time to pivot, you have to determine, is this based on my goals and what I'm wanting out of life and where I'm headed in this business? Or is this based on what other people think? Or is this based on traditional wisdom, right? And traditional wisdom is good, developing all of that, but they're puzzle pieces. We have to look at them and determine, does this fit my puzzle? Does this work here? And then understanding that we're going to pivot a lot. And sometimes as small business owner, it's going to be amazing. And we're going to be like, yes, best decision ever. Sometimes it's not going to be so amazing. And those are lessons. We step up, we dust ourselves off, and we get back at it.
Oh, love that. I heard so much mindset in there. Like,
oh yeah.
So do you read personal development, listen? Like, what do you do? Okay.
Yeah. So I have a business coach. I also have a mindset coach.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah. And then I read, listen to podcasts, all kinds of good stuff.
Do you fit that into your daily routine in the morning?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I totally do too.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I can always tell when people do not,
Oh, absolutely.
When they're on your team and they're like, I'm doing all the things, I'm doing all the blah, blah, and I'm like, are you reading? Are you listening to a podcast? Like, I know it sounds woo-woo, but like, are you doing it?
Right. Because we are what we feed ourselves, just like our bodies are what we feed ourselves, right? Our minds are what we feed ourselves. And, it's interesting. Something that I've just started doing in the last couple of weeks that is, I love it, is at the end of the night, I'm writing in my journal things that I commit to leave in this day. So, like I wrote last night, I had an insecurity over something yesterday. And so I was like, I commit to leave this insecurity over this in February 16th, 2021. I commit to leaving my weakness in this area in February 16th, 2021, right? I write a few things that I commit to leaving that day. And it's interesting because the next day when I start to feel insecure, I'm like, I left that yesterday. I don't have to do that anymore.
I love that.
It's just one of those mental things.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Writing it, saying it.
Yeah.
Envisioning it, like it becomes reality. Like I really love that. I'm going to start doing that. Awesome. Oh my gosh. Okay. Is there anything that you want to share that I have not asked you about that's like really on your heart to share to the women business owner listening to this?
Business can be this crazy, exciting adventure, or it can be a freaking nightmare. I mean, let's just be completely honest, right?
Yeah.
I just want to encourage anyone out there that is struggling and that is beating themselves up and is feeling shame and all of that kind of stuff. it doesn't matter what happens with the business. It does matter what happens with you. So if you are struggling in this time, get yourself help in the form of a counselor, in the form of a coach, in the form of nutritionist, whatever is it you need to start your personal journey of healing. The business follows you. The stronger you are, the stronger the business is going to become. So don't let that be your temperature gauge as far as how you're doing. Determine how you're doing, and then let the business be the temperature gauge of how, hold on, I said that wrong. Determine how you are doing, and then the business will follow.
Yes. Well, yeah, because it's only going to be as strong as you are. And if you
Absolutely.
if you have these areas in your life where you're insecure or you're not showing up and getting, being the best you, then there's no way you can be the best you in your business.
Absolutely.
100%. Okay. Before we leave, I have been asking all of my guests, and you mentioned that you could fly to Chicago or go somewhere. So I feel like you might have a good answer to this.
Yeah.
Where is your favorite place you've ever traveled to?
Oh gosh.
It's always a hard one. I know. I should
Yeah,
get.
probably recently it has been Portland, Oregon. About 18 months ago, I think I spent 2 weeks there, and it just is so fun. So fun on the Pacific Coast. It's a fun atmosphere, that kind of thing. But love the Caribbean, of course. Love Siesta Key. My daughter and I took a impromptu trip to Siesta Key last summer, and that was a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
I just love.
I love that. I've actually never been to Portland, Oregon. It's on my list. It's
Oh my gosh, absolutely have to.
Yeah. I've heard it's like a really trendy town, right?
It is very trendy. It's funny. It's definitely not Midwest culture.
Yeah.
It's fun to just kind of step back and watch everything unfold. But
Yeah.
my favorite memory of, it was something called Sofer Sounds, and it was basically you sign up, and if they only select a certain number of people, and those people then the day of are told where to show up and what 3 local bands are playing. And so we ended up having a concert with 3 local bands in this skyscraper filled with windows as the sun went down over Portland. It was the coolest experience ever.
Wow.
And there were only like 30 of us there, right? That's the amount. And so just putting myself out there in different cultures and being able to experience some of that stuff.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I'll definitely have to reach out to you if I ever go to Portland and ask you for the name of that again. Awesome, Shannon. Well, how can everyone connect with you? And guys, I'm going to put all the links. If you're watching this live, they should already be up there. But if you're listening to this on the podcast, check out the links in the bio. So Shannon, how can we connect with you further?
So I have a strong personal brand as well. We're actually developing it more, so I've pulled back some on that. But feel free to connect with me on social, Shannon Close McGill. And then on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm on there personally, but then also Diam Business Consulting is the company page. And I post a lot of empowerment type things for small business owner and mindset things for small business owners. So even if you're not in the place right now that you think you would utilize our services, we speak to small business because we believe that we're stronger together, and small business can be a mighty team. No matter where we are, we can link arms and move forward together. So I'm here to facilitate that.
Awesome. I love this. Oh my gosh, you gave us so much good just advice. And like I haven't written down this much in a podcast interview for a really long time. So
oh my gosh,
I really
so much. It means the world to me.
Yeah, seriously. And I am totally going to get off here and send these links over to a couple women on my team and be like, you're fine that you don't like our power hour. It's fine. Okay, Shannon. Well, thank you so much for your time.
I really appreciate it. Bye.